This is Christian Gomez with the New American Magazine, and today on the program we have Heather Hobbs.
Hi, Christian. Thanks for having me.
So, Heather, I know that you have been tracking the election in Kentucky, in which Andy Beshear, the Democratic candidate, was declared the winner over incumbent Republican Governor Matt Bevin. But there's some irregularities there that the governor has even brought up with regards to this election and how the results may have been fraudulent, may be fraudulent. So, Heather, what can you share with us about the election in Kentucky and why Governor Bevin matters a lot to Save the One as well?
Well, not just Save the One, but a pro life movement in general. We all should be standing up supporting Matt Bevin, regardless of our views on politics, because he is one of the few politicians nationally that has fought for life adamantly. And I mean, he has an entire team of legal experts trying to help get pro life legislation passed. Uh, there are multiple things that he signed this year. Some of the big ones that he signed was SB 9. It was a heartbeat bill, and it bans abortion once the heartbeat can be detected. And part of what Save the One really appreciated about his heartbeat bill, as opposed to, say, Georgia, which we helped out with as well, is he fought for no exceptions. He didn't try to target children because of the crimes of their fathers if they were conceived in rape. He didn't target children who were maybe given a diagnosis that doctors felt like didn't have a good outcome. He wanted everyone to have an equal chance to life.
So the Kentucky heartbeat bill is a clean, no exceptions legislation, then, unlike in Georgia where there are exceptions.
Yes, exactly. And Georgia's original bill was a clean bill. And as you know, I was there helping out with it, and the exceptions were slipped in just moments before I got up to testify. So in my testimony, I said, I support this bill in its original form. And we were watching what Kentucky and Alabama were doing to see if maybe Georgia would kind of step up and follow their lead. Matt Bevin was fantastic, showing other governors, other politicians, how to stand strong and fight for life despite opposition, people trying to sneak in different exceptions. Because once you have exceptions, you have a major loophole and you have room for doctors or other medical personnel to be able to say, well, she said she was raped, or, well, the baby has maybe Down syndrome, and I don't think a Down syndrome child will have a good quality of life. So I've decided that they fall into this category. And there's multiple situations where they can push the envelope in other heartbeat bills around the state, but Matt Bevin didn't allow that to happen.
So Bevin's apparent loss could be used as an example. Hey, this is what happens when you go strong pro-life without exceptions. We'll remove you from office, so to speak. And that could be what's happening here with Governor Bevin. That the strong pro-choice, as they're called, or pro-abortion, really, advocates out there have pushed to get him out of office. But when you look at the election results, they do seem pretty fishy. If you look at the Kentucky Board of Elections, apparently or supposedly 709,000 plus people voted for Andy Beshear. Now, if that's true, that is more than any of the other Democratic candidates that were up for election on different positions. So he got more votes than any of the other Democrats, which is kind of odd. And he lost by less than 1% of the vote. So, what are your thoughts about this close election and Governor Bevin's current attempts to investigate any fraud that there may have been with the election?
So I was watching Governor Bevin's Twitter page right around when the results were announced, waiting for some sort of announcement from him because I believe it was a 0.36% loss, so very small. When you say less than 1%, it seems
A,
0.36%. It's tiny, tiny.
a third of a
And I was
percent.
Yes, and so I was wondering, does Kentucky allow for when a vote is so close like that for a recount or for an investigation of some sorts? But his Twitter page was silent. And all day long, I saw no updates. And then the next day. So my concern was, all right, is he going to fight this, or is he going to allow this to go forward? Because a lot of people didn't believe that he could really lose. And finally, he came forward with an announcement on live television saying that there are multiple suspicious occurrences that were found, including people being turned away at the polls who said that they were Republican voters who were not allowed to vote. There are people saying that, there are the classic dead people voting. There's other things going on with the systems that are suspicious. And as you said, everywhere else in the elections, people voted Republican, but this one particular, in regards to being governor, somehow a Democrat won. And so a lot of people rightfully believe things are not quite adding up. And so he has come forward and said, whoever won, but I'm going to make sure that this is investigated, all of these areas where there are potentially voter fraud happening. And, definitely, like you said, the Democrats, they're not happy with Matt Bevin, and I do believe they're attempting to make an example. And aside from the heartbeat bill, he also signed SB 50, which requires doctors who give an abortion pill to patients to let them know that there is a reversal option. They can have a reversal done within X amount of time. That was something that Planned Parenthood really fought against. They didn't want women to know that you could reverse an abortion. And I'm very involved in a lot of these pages, kind of watching what is being said by Planned Parenthood and their advocates. Something that they're spreading falsely is that pro-life people are making up this abortion reversal. They think that it's a made-up thing, but one of my good friends, Dr. William Lyle, based out of Florida, he's pro-life doc, OBGYN. He performs them all the time. He has, regularly women come in, he'll save the baby's life by reversing with, I believe it's progesterone and another medication. So that's a law that Matt Bevin signed in, saying doctors have to let women know if they make this decision to kill their child, maybe they're pressured, maybe they're scared, there is the option to reverse it. And so Planned Parenthood was extremely upset about that as well.
But I'm sure Planned Parenthood was quite glad with the apparent results of the election, seeing Andy Beshear being declared the apparent winner, because Planned Parenthood, as you know, has a political arm, Planned Parenthood Action. And have you been keeping up tabs with how much money they've poured into Andy Beshear's campaign?
I don't know exactly how much the dollar amount, but I've seen them proclaiming him as a champion for choice. So you can look through their page, look Planned Parenthood plus Andy Beshear, all kinds of stuff's going to come up because they really endorse him. He is an advocate for those full-term abortions. He's younger too, so I always have to assume with the younger politicians that makes Planned Parenthood excited because they can stretch that pro-choice, as they call it, agenda much longer. Another thing that Bevin did this year was HB 5, and that bans abortion based on sex, race, and perceived disability of the unborn child. That one is critical and crucial, I believe, for the entire nation, because a lot of the pro-life legislation that's being celebrated right now targets and discriminate those with disabilities or, children, because there's a woman I saw last week said she didn't want to have a black baby, so she's having an abortion. I've seen someone say that we don't want to have boys because, all men are going to eventually be rapists or chauvinist pigs. So there are people having gender selective abortions. And then the last thing that I wanted to make sure to share is Matt Bevin was brilliant with HB 148. That measure would ban abortion entirely from Kentucky should Roe v. Wade be overturned. Now, wow. That is probably the scariest legislation for Planned Parenthood because that would completely end abortion there.
Now, these things are already law because Governor Bevin already signed them into law, so the Democrats can't undo those unless they get a majority in the state legislature and the Assembly and Senate and pass legislation to overturn that. But obviously, Save the One does not endorse political candidates, but Governor Bevin, in his capacity as governor of Kentucky, he has passed a lot of legislation that other governors have not done so, even on the Republican side, when it comes to really standing up for human life. So,
we support his pro-life advocacy.
Yeah, you support
We
his
endorse
pro-life.
his advocacy. We don't endorse him as a candidate, but his advocacy is beyond what we see in other candidates.
So, what are your what final thoughts do you have you'd like to share with our audience with regards to the race in Kentucky, or perhaps what should pro-life advocates in Kentucky be doing to make sure that the election doesn't get stolen officially, since they have not yet given official results pending the investigation that will be conducted?
Well, for one, our Kentucky, brothers and sisters fighting for life really need to not only stand up against Planned Parenthood, who is taking these laws that Bevin has signed, they're taking them to the higher courts and getting them blocked temporarily. So we need people out there fighting against that where it's getting blocked. But we also need people to stand up for Matt Bevin. If there's things that they disagree with, focus on the pro-life side of things. What has he done for the cause? What will he continue to do for this cause? And how can we help save the unborn? Because everybody's watching Kentucky right now. They're watching to see if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Are we going to ban abortion completely? They're going to be an example for the rest of the country. And pro-life advocates in Kentucky need to research and need to see what good he has done for the cause.
So Kentucky is certainly a battleground state, especially if Roe v. Wade does get overturned at some point in the future. All eyes will be on Kentucky on how they act and proceed with overturning abortion legislation that is on the books. Okay, Heather, well, thank you so much for joining us on the program. You take care, and we hope to have you on again soon.